Hey guys, it's Tony Thompson. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. I'm Tony Thompson, your host. I'm excited for my guest that we have today. I tell you, behind the scenes, we've been chopping it up and really, I love his journey and I love I'm going to call it a niche, but really his superpowers. And we're going to talk more about that. But first and foremost, please welcome in and joining Mark Maimon, who's the branch manager, a branch manager for the Luminate Bank, which is also Marcus based out on the West Coast in Los Angeles. Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a lot of great things that we're going to be talking about here. What I love about what you're doing in terms of building your business is you're focusing on some areas that I don't really hear too many originators talk about. When I have these conversations and while we're out in the marketplace, we're chasing excellence. So I can't wait to get into the conversation a little bit to really talk about your business development focus and some what I call nuggets that you have uncovered. But before we get started, for those who may not be familiar with Luminate Bank, tell us a little bit about Luminate Bank.
Yeah, sure. So we joined them relatively recently, almost a year ago. And so it's a bank that's headquartered in Minnesota. I actually just came back from the sales summit there last week, my first trip to Minnesota. It's a retail bank. It's nationally chartered, so we're licensed in all 50 states. But what I like about it most is it has a different mentality than most conventional banks in that the management of it is all people in the mortgage space. So the main focus of the bank is actually lending. I believe the story behind it was that it was a bunch of mortgage executives that raised capital to buy the bank, not the other way around, which is pretty rare. So it's heavy focus on lending. So we have portfolio products, we can do correspondent lending, and we can also broker out to other institutions when we need to. So it's really flexible. And for what I do and the niches that I try to fill, that's a really, really important thing and a really good fit for the type of business that I do.
Great. And we're going to talk later on about those niches. As I said, I really love some of those sweet spots that you're zeroing in on. Everyone has a story. And, before we get to your story of how you got started in the mortgage industry, for the last couple of years, you've been, knocking at that almost 100 million production on an annualized side. There are some years over the last 4 or 5 years that, you exceeded up to 200 million. And so, obviously you originate a lot, but also at the same time, you've had to make adjustments and pivots to your business model. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. But Mark, what's your story?
My story. So I come from a marketing background out of college. I was absolutely set I was going to work for ad agencies in New York City. So out of college, I chased my then girlfriend, who's now my wife of over 25 years, out to New York. Started my career there. Chewed up, spit out in the first few years of advertising. Youngest guy on the totem pole is quick to get laid off when things aren't going well or you lose an account, or it's a long story I'll spare your audience with. But after 3 jobs in 2 years in that industry and continuing to get laid off for things that were out of my control, I finally decided I needed to try something different, that I had a little more control over my own destiny. So friends of mine had worked for a mortgage company, a small mortgage company in New York City, and had encouraged me to come and work there. And I kept telling them no. And then finally I said, you know what? I got to try something new. I don't know what I want to do. I don't really like sales because I had some vision of what sales actually was. And then decided that, you know what? Let's give it a try. I'll try it for 6 months and then I'll probably try something else. Well, 6 months is now almost 25 years ago, and here I am, and I found my calling, and I love what I do. So I started my career in New York City. Still have a whole team out there. have a team member in Florida, and now I run the operation in LA as well, where I moved in 2008 for family reasons. My wife's an actress, so she needed to be in LA. I was terrified to make that move, but did it anyway. And now here we are, almost 20 years after that, and now it actually worked in my favor because now I'm building business in two primary markets. So it actually, maybe she was onto something. So here we are.
Congratulations, first of all, on just the journey and the success. And, one of the things that I always talk about on chasing excellence is the fact that this industry, one of the things I love about this industry is no matter where you come from, no matter what you did prior to coming into the industry, anyone can be successful if they're willing to do a certain couple things around work hard and look at ways that they can create a niche and really identify themselves in the marketplace as that go-to consummate sales professional. So congratulations to you on making a pivot, but still leveraging your marketing expertise, your passion and your love for marketing, which we're going to talk about here a little bit as maybe one of your potential superpowers there as well. So love that journey. Mark, when you look at the current market, what do you see right now as one of the greatest opportunities for someone in your position as you look out into the next year?
Well, I think it's important if you're leading a team or a division or a group, whatever it is, you have to have some vision of where the windows of opportunity are. There's always windows of opportunity. You have to take a step back from your business to really see where they are. So, right now there's a lot of uncertainty. Buyers and sellers aren't necessarily on the same page as far as where prices should be. So and people have, 2.5% to 3% mortgage rates. So they're just not moving. So there's a lot of interesting factors, but there always are. In 2007 and 8, we had a bunch of REO properties and property values going down. Like, it's always something in our industry. We've always got, one eye covered, so we can't necessarily see the future. But if you take the time to really step back and see what's going on, there are areas of need. So for me, one of those areas is the seniors, because you have the baby boomers who are now coming to an age where they're starting to think about, elder care, or you have the adult children who are basically my age trying to help their, roughly 80-year-old parents figure out how they're going to navigate things. And it's very expensive to age. And a lot of people don't know that. They're not prepared for it. And so that's been one of the areas where we see a window of opportunity. So there's a few, I don't know if you want to get into all these things now, but there's a few little pockets that we try to focus on. One of my, whatever you want to call it, superpowers or ideas is to go where other people in my industry are not. I find areas that are less crowded. I go where other people are not.
Wow.
So for the senior space, most of that marketing is reverse mortgages. We advertise and market ourselves as alternatives to reverse mortgages because a lot of people don't like them. They have a kind of a polarizing reputation as a loan product. Okay. Some people love them, some people hate them. So we provide additional alternatives, including reverse mortgages. I like to do a lot of non-QM for high net worth people. So you'd think high net worth people, they have all these banking relationships, so they can get a loan from anywhere. But there's a lot of them that are business owners where the tax returns don't look great, but they're generating revenue and they might be able to qualify for non-QM. I do a lot of bridge loans. Used to run a national bridge loan program for a major real estate brand. And sometimes the bridge loans, even though it's not a huge percentage of our business, will lead to a purchase transaction. So when you focus on the areas where other people are not, you can establish yourself as an expert. And the rest of the business, the everyday stuff, your average client that does qualify just fine, still comes in. I think loan officers are nervous about focusing on niches because then they think, well, nobody will think of me for the standard transactions. Yeah. I can tell you from my own experience, that's not how it works. When you promote yourself as an expert in the niches, they rely on you for the difficult transactions and the easier ones.
Love that. As you look over your journey and, again, you do a what I would consider very short along large amount of volumes on an annualized basis, you got to stay motivated. And what do you do to stay focused and motivated?
Well, I have two kids in private school, so that helps.
That will help. That will help.
um,
Absolutely.
I don't know. I just like I really enjoy what I do, so it doesn't feel like work to me. Like this feels almost like a bit of a game. Like it's a challenge. Like how far can you push? How much can you stretch? How what opportunities can you find that other people are not? And then I'm just motivated to drive to see those through. I love putting together partnerships and opportunities and figuring out how to make them grow. It's just enjoyable to me. So I say motivated because I love what I do. I see the results from it and I see other people are not doing it, which makes me motivated to do it more and faster, to be
Love that.
first to market in certain spaces.
So, what would you say, Mark, in terms of giving advice to someone out there who's trying to get to where you are or elevate beyond that, or maybe looking at trying to find their secret superpower in terms of a special niche? What's one piece of advice would you give them?
Just, I mean, follow my path if you think it's right for you, but find the areas in your own market that are underserved. Everyone can do a standard Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan, FHA, VA. Anyone can do those. And if you market yourself on the fact that you have good rates and you have good service, those are the baseline. Like that's not, no one's going to pay attention to you and no one's going to remember you, right? You can do a great job for people, but that should be the baseline as far as I'm concerned. You need to actually add value. So we, for example, work a lot with wealth advisors, and in order to do that, you need to know the lingo. You need to know how trusts work. You need to know the difference between a trustee and a trustor and a successor trustee. And like, you need to know these things in order to market to those people, because if they feel like you don't know their world, they're not going to trust you. And trust is a huge, huge factor in that space in particular. But I would say my general advice is don't be afraid to pick a niche and go hard in that niche, because then it's something for people to remember you. There's a lot of people in the mortgage industry, most of which, I would say 95% of which, are competing for exactly the same exact deals. That's why I prefer to go what I call is just outside the center lane. That's where I thrive. I still get center lane transactions, but I focus my marketing and my promotion of my business on very specific niches that serve a need that people come across fairly often.
Love that. Love that. When you think about opportunities, um, there's a lot going on in our industry right now. Um, and what do you see as an opportunity for you and your business, or just an opportunity for those who are in the industry over the next 12 to 18 months, Mark?
So for me, we put a lot of time and energy into marketing to the seniors and the adult children who are supporting them, because there's a huge population that's aging right now. Not that we're gonna, do loans for every person who's turning a certain age or anything like that, but it's an underserved group. So again, finding that space that may not be overly crowded. And also, to be honest, I think a lot of times people try to compete on price. That is a race to the bottom, in my opinion. So I try to focus on clients who are less price sensitive, because you're adding value and expertise. So that could be seniors who are dealing with, how do we pay for care? Like that's a big deal. You're not going to get shopped over an eighth in rate when you're helping a family figure out how to take care of their parents. Like that's just not how it works. Wealth advisors are a great source of business, because dissimilar to real estate agents, who I adore. I love real estate agents, but you have to listen to your data. That's something that we've really gotten good at. We track everything and we look at our data, and I can tell you that to close the same amount of business, I need 10 times as many referrals from real estate agents that I need from wealth advisors. 10 times. So focus my time on the wealth advisors and getting to know their world and what's important to them. Here's a niche. I don't take your clients' money. I don't take their deposits like their big retail banks try to, right? So that's a niche. So if you have a wealth advisor that doesn't want their client to move $1 million to, some big retail bank, I won't say which ones, but the ones that you see the branches for all across the country, they're after deposits. So if you go to a wealth manager, let's say a smaller, medium size firm that doesn't have their own banking, the last thing you want to do is go after them and be like, hey, please refer me your client, and I'm going to ask them to move $1 million to another bank, who's then going to solicit them for the business that that you're doing for them. So again, little niches and ways to understand their world and the concerns that they have and to cater to it.
You know, prior to us shooting this podcast and talking, one of the things that we had a discussion about, which really stuck with me, Mark, was you said that you're very big on planting seeds and watching you grow. And, I said, hey, what do you contribute to your success? And you said, I remember you said, Tony, I focused on investing in marketing or investing in a particular line of business or opportunity. And I know that may not yield, 5 million in production next month, but I'm willing to invest. And I think that's an area that sometimes um, originators and sales professionals look at and say, if I can't benefit from it next week or next month, then, they tend to shy back from leaning in and really trying to plant and cultivate that opportunity.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something that I consider one of our, I don't even know if I call this superpower, just our maybe being a little naive or excited about creating new business lines or new waves of opportunity. Um, and I don't want to make light of the fact that it's easier to do that when you have other production that can support you during this time. So you don't want to make this your only thing. Like, you want to get a little bit established before you can really legitimately do these types of things. But the senior space is one perfect example. So I hired a full-time marketer who had been in the senior space for 20 years. I saw the need, but I didn't have the contacts. I needed somebody who's already been to all the conferences. I don't want to go to all the conferences. I don't want to do that. It would take me 20 years to make all the relationships that I need to make. By that time, maybe I'll be burned out. Who knows? But I knew that if I wanted to fast track this opportunity and be early to the market in the messaging that we're providing, I needed somebody who was already in that space, and that cost me a good amount of money to hire somebody, knowing that we are planting a seed that hasn't been planted before, as far as I know, as far as this angle that we're taking with these families and this industry, the senior space. But it's been almost a year and a half, and we're just starting to see the fruits of that labor, and it's starting to build. We're starting to get more consistent referrals, and then the closings happen next. But it's a long period of time to be willing to do that. And I think as loan officers, we're naturally, predisposed to chasing the deal that's right in front of us, which you should, absolutely. But once you get to a certain level and you have people that can support you and you're willing to delegate, it frees up your time to be able to go after other longer term opportunities that could have significant benefits in the form of a lot of business, because you're opening a new market that other people are not in. Again, I avoid the crowded space. Not that I don't love crowds. I'm a social guy. I love crowds. It's no problem. but I don't love going into a crowd up against every other bank trying to shave, $50 off of my fees. And, that's not the type of client that I typically chase after.
Love that. And, in any business, you've got to look at it and say, hey, you know what? If I'm going to be and own a space, I've got to invest in that space. I've got to, cultivate that space. And so I want to ask all of our audience, what are you cultivating today? What space are you investing in so that over the next year to 2 years, you can actually have a niche that is generating additional revenue and additional volume for you as well? Mark, I tell you, I have enjoyed our conversation, man. Before I close out on our podcast, I always like to talk about gratefulness. What's one thing that you're grateful for, Mark?
Yeah, I think, this business, when you do it right, can be a lucrative one and can support your family. And I think it's important to not lose sight of other people that are in need. So one of the things that we're starting to put in, kind of another seed, if you want to call it, to plant. So my wife and I went on a trip to Kenya a couple years ago, and really talking to our guides and talking about families who, we'd see a lot of kids, walking around in the middle of the day, talk to the guides, why aren't they in school? And they can't afford it. How much does it cost? About $500 a year. And so I came back from that trip just really inspired to help kids. That just seems like such a small amount where you can make such a big difference in people's lives. So one of the things we're starting to do is to raise money for an amazing organization where, we're in real estate where there's a collision of money, like money just explodes at a closing, especially in high-end markets. It could be millions of dollars, buyer, seller, agent, commissions are high, loan officers making money. So it seemed like an opportunity to be able to encourage people to donate to this organization that helps. They technically drill wells. It's an organization called the Samburu Project. But when there's water in these areas, everything else flourishes. Education, the kids aren't basically, their job isn't to go fetch water for 6 hours every day. Now they can go to school. So it's just a huge impact on people's lives. So our goal is to raise, so far we're getting pretty close. Our goal is to raise enough to dig one well, which serves over 1,000 people. And that's about $25,000 to do that. And we're getting pretty close to that goal. So just finding ways to give back, to have a purpose that's beyond just making money for yourself. Even though you can make money along the journey, there are other people that really are in need. And there's places in the world where seemingly small amount to us is a huge difference maker to them. And so that's something that, keeps me inspired, and you just feel good about what you're doing, and just helping people in general, helping them on their financial journey and helping them develop a financial team behind them and understanding the implications and the importance of homeownership. Having deeper conversations with people and hopefully changing their mentality, and hopefully over time that is the spark that changed their financial life. So we don't take lightly what we do. We kind of approach it as though we're looking at mortgages through a financial planning lens. We're not financial planners, not licensed to do that, but we have to understand what a financial planner does and all the issues like tax and things like that, trusts and whatnot, that are really important when you own a home. So we try to just do what we refer to as a higher level of lending and really add value in ways that the average loan officer isn't adding.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, Mark, I want to personally thank you, man, for joining me on another episode of Chasing Excellence. I look forward to having you back in the future. One, talking about your journey as you serve more into the senior space, but also getting an update on your Give, your love project that you have going on right now as well. And so, again, thank you for joining us today on Chasing Excellence. I'm Tony Thompson. I'm your host of Chasing Excellence, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Take care.
Thank you.
Whatever is necessary.